Calling the meeting to order.
Roll call. Dennis Bender,
Here.
Donna Davis,
Here.
Maria Okwara here, Rick Raleigh,
Here.
Wilson Sell.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Kylie, do we have any public comments?
We do not have any public comments pertaining to closed session.
Thank you.
Okay, closed session. We need to go into closed session to discuss the following. Public employee, discipline.
This chair goes right underneath this. I have blood on my hand.
We need to go into closed session to discuss the following. Public employee, discipline, dismissal, release, reassignment, transfer, leave, title, certificated and classified employees. Number 2, public employee appointment, resignation, retirement, reduction, title, certificated and classified employees. Conference on litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9A, current litigations, 3 cases. CIVDS 1813952, CIVDS
172.
7172, CIVDS 1937043, Government Code Section 54954.5C and 54956.9D2 and E1. Anticipated litigation, 5 cases, 2018-19-07, 2019-20-07, 2019-20-08, 09, 2020-20, 2020-2101, 2020-2102, conference with real property negotiator, Government Code 54956.8A, negotiating parties, Matthew Schulenberg, Apple Valley USD, B1, APN number 3112-241-71-0000, CJ Holdings LLC. B2, APN number 3087-171-07-0000, Frontier Land Holdings, Inc. B3, APN number 0439-012-20-0000, Omni 2012 Apple Valley LLC. B4, APN number 0439-012-21-0000, Omni 20.12 Apple Valley LLC. B5, APN number 0439-012-22-0000, Omni 20.12 Apple Valley LLC. Conference with labor negotiator, agency negotiator Dustin Conrad, employee organization Apple Valley Unified Teachers Association. Conference with labor negotiator, agency negotiator Dustin Conrad, employee organization California School Employees Association. conference with labor negotiator, agency negotiator, Trinae Nelson, employee organization unrepresented. Superintendent's evaluation. Motion to go into closed
So moved.
session.
Motion, we go into closed session.
I'll second it.
those
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
public meeting, pledge allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. In closed session, the Board of Trustees took action in support of the following recommendation from the superintendent. Public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reassignment, transfer, leave, certificated and classified employees. On a motion by Mr. Raleigh, seconded by Mr. So, on a unanimous consent, the Board of Trustees approved the following recommendation from the superintendent. In accordance with California Education Code 44923, employee 2866, certificated teacher, is to be released from the extracurricular position contained in Article 20.g, Schedule A of the contract agreement between Apple Valley Unified School District and Apple Valley Unified Teachers Association effective September 24, 2020.
The board may approve the agenda as is or add and/or pull items from the consent agenda for discussion and/or action. We need to adopt the agenda as is. Do I have a motion?
Made the motion.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Discussion information, school reopening update, Mr. Schlosser?
Yes, thank you. I'll keep this brief. Not a lot has changed as far as from the point of view of the day-to-day operations and instruction from the last report, but we have some good news to report. I will briefly give you just some of the numbers. Our enrollment has dipped under 13,000. Like I reported last time, that's only down a few, but it is about 2% lower than about the same time, or rather when we closed officially in May. So we're down a little bit. We also are noticing that we're at the first academic warning notice for high school, and grades are lower than they were at this time last year. So we know this. We know that this has been a difficult time and it's not ideal. However, the county public health data has allowed us to move forward with some conversations that have just been wonderful in planning for return to some form of in-person instruction, or as we've been calling it lately, at least an enhancement to the distance learning. So we've met 3 times with the group that includes classified, certificated, bargaining unit members and managers. Very productive, very unified meetings about our process. And so we started with just defining all the terms, looking at data, making sure that we all understood the guidance documents and what the target was to be able to return students. We then asked them for input, concerns, ideas, comments that they felt we ought to address as a team, and they did that. We got almost 100 comments, some of them overlapping. So we took them, we organized them and packaged them up, and then asked them then to begin to brainstorm ideas to answer these concerns, which they took very seriously. Outstanding input, right? Lots of ideas. And generally, I'll tell you, characterized by a can-do attitude to bring the system closer to a safe and appropriate reopening of in-person instruction. So the most recent meeting was excellent. We were able to get the groups together and once again, push those items to the experts where they belong. We took their input and said, okay, now that we know, for example, what transportation needs to come up with for a plan, they will work on that. Nutrition services rather, will work on that. Matt's department has a huge part of this. Of course, risk management and that division will be working hard to make sure that our plans comply with the guidelines put forward. But this group worked hard yesterday evening on schedules and a calendar. And so we have kind of a template for schedules, and they're going to be in essentially 3 different kinds of groups. One, a cohort, which is allowed at this time, was for special education or high need groups of students in a stable cohort of not more than 16 total people. And I think the guidelines for the number of students is no more than 14. And so that could be a configuration of, say, students who are typically with the same teacher all day in a special education setting. If that number is appropriate and we can make that work, we can schedule those to begin. And so those families have actually been contacted, and we know who's planning to come and who isn't. And so we're looking at a potential start date, all works well, of that program when we return from October break of October 19th.
How will they get to school?
Again, that's part of the transportation process. It's possible though, Mr. Bender, because that group already gets transportation. And if we are only starting that group, there is some capacity to do this.
Okay.
There is some capacity.
What plans do you have for lunch for those?
Good question. That was a whole host of the commentary had to do with that. And so maybe I'll pause here and let Mr. Schulenberg just tell you what we're gathering ideas and information now. So.
Yeah. As Pat said, we're gathering some ideas and information, and we're trying to get clarification from our consultant up at CDE as to how we're currently serving meals, and if that fulfills the requirement. If we reopen and bring students on campus, what is the minimum amount of time when they're on campus are we required to serve a meal? So we were seeking clarification in that aspect, because in our current serving model, we are serving every Wednesday under the Seamless Summer Program to any child ages 2 to 18 a week's worth of meals. That is 5 full breakfasts and 5 full lunches. So we are fulfilling the requirement to feed our students every Wednesday. And if the students return to campus for possibly a short time, and I know we talked about for a minimum 240 minutes or less, that's where we're seeking clarification, is if we have to provide a meal for them at school. So I don't have an exact answer, but we are seeking information.
Thank you.
Mr. Schoenberg, can I have you clarify? Yes, no, it was always my understanding that when we provide the meal to a student, we provide up to 5 days of breakfast, 5 days of lunch, because a lot of these kids really need this supply, right? Support.
That's what we're providing every Wednesday.
Okay.
5 breakfasts and
5
5 lunch
okay.
to every child that
The
presents,
child.
whether they're a student or not.
Okay. But what you're saying is that if they are there physically at school, maybe there'll be one day that we
Yeah,
give them
yes.
physically that meal
Well,
at the school.
If they're physically at school, we may not have to provide meals while they're physically at school if they're not there for a full
During
school
the
day,
school
because
day.
we are providing all the meals on Wednesday. That's the clarification we're seeking from our consultant up at CDE.
Got it.
We certainly want to follow the rules and regulations. We want to provide food to our students, but we have to have a system in place where we're not providing multiple lunches to a student. So we can't provide them more than 1 breakfast and 1 lunch a day. So we have to have a system in place where we're ensuring we're not providing excess meals.
I I'm in these meetings as well, and one of the things that I indicated yesterday was this is a phased-in approach. When Mr. Schulenberg stated that this is an enhancement to distance learning, we are going to have to take some step to get kids back into seats for some capacity during a day in order to validate our cleaning protocols. The minute we add food to this, we are then talking about other areas that we have to sanitize and deal with where there could be students that would converge from other classrooms. So limiting and making it short periods of time to start, getting kids back engaged with their teachers and meeting them face-to-face, not through a computer, and supporting our families to have some in-seat time is really what we're desiring to start with. It will mimic what some of our neighboring districts have through a waiver process, and we are utilizing the guidelines in the waiver process to put the plan together, period, because that is the most stringent, right? A waiver is, we are still in the red. We must therefore have the most stringent requirements. And again, it includes testing of employees. If we have to quarantine anybody because of a positive test, we have to have those systems in place. So small numbers transitioned in. And when somebody asked me how many phases we might have, I said, I have no crystal ball to know that. Because each time we add something such as lunch or an extended period of a day, that is a phase. And so each of those will create its own hurdles and obstacles as we move forward. So getting something happening so that then we can move forward with other options.
I have a question though, and this is to you, Pat. If a teacher is having the, let's say the group, this cohort is having their group of 16 students, is that teacher still doing the online instruction for the group of students that are not coming? And so that means they're preparing two kinds of lessons going on at the same time, because they're going to meet the needs of the students who are at home and the needs of the students who are on campus. Is that what you're looking at?
We are hoping not to have that be the case, but that might mean some restructuring of classes. So those classes are typically around 12 students.
Mhm.
So if all the students were to return, we could accomplish this. Of course, in not every case do all the families feel yet comfortable to send their children. So we may have to take the teachers on that campus and have the students who are returning assigned to one group, and it may be that there's a group of students who do not plan to return. We're going to carefully look at that data next and propose, because what we don't want to have happening in that particular case is that sort of teacher having to do both roles. However, I will say that not in the non-cohort model, in the waiver model, the template, the schedule template that the teachers and the staff in the meeting yesterday talked about was a hybrid. And in a hybrid, students would be at school for a couple of days a week. Monday, Tuesday, group A, Wednesday, kind of a cleaning day, and students checked in online. Thursday, Friday, group B. And group A and B are simply half of your class at a time, which then means, yes, in some way, shape, or form, the group who's at home does still require, per Senate Bill 98, a daily live check-in with the teacher. And so that's part of why we're talking about this day being shorter, because the day, there's no minimum number of on-campus minutes. Do you follow? That day does not have to be any particular length other than what the logistics of our system require and what information we get back. And if that day is somewhat shortened, it allows us to get them in front of us so we can connect to them at least part of a couple of days, but also leave time for the teacher to be able to check in with that other half. And the teachers were aware of this and they understood that. And they actually came up with some proposals for the number of minutes. It was excellent. And we'll be bringing some of those back to you as we continue to roll out through the process of the actual schedules. Now, there are maybe some who don't return at all, and those would have to be assigned in a different place.
Okay.
The logistics of that are going to be complicated, but they're worth undertaking.
The challenge that you'll probably run into with all of this is that you will hear parents that have complaints that the teacher is not returning their call. But the teacher has a responsibility to this group of students in the morning,
In front of them.
and then also has a responsibility to the students who are at home. And do you allow your teachers to have office hours that says, from this window to this window, I'm available? If you call me outside of that, I will contact you tomorrow during my next window.
Some
Do
do
you
that.
have that?
Some do that. They all solve that in a myriad of different ways, but yes,
Okay.
some do have office hours. But remember, they do have to have a daily live check-in.
Correct.
But outside of that, like you said, for getting those questions answered, some do have an office hours kind of set up
Okay.
so that they can say either by email or by phone, they're available
Okay.
to answer questions.
'Cause
And it really depends
that's-
on the grade level.
We hear a lot of that with teachers that are saying we're working longer.
Yeah.
And we're working harder because we are now working with technology and working with real life situations and now having to deal with the questions that come at us in between. So we need to be able to pull it so that the teachers will still be able to work their 7 hours and 11 minutes
Right.
as opposed to 9-hour day or 10-hour day, because
That's
we're
right.
hearing a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good argument for why this might not be a full school day in any shape or form. It might be a
Okay.
limited time. And I think if our parents understand that that's our first phase, that this is our first phase, and if we do this well and keep everyone healthy and safe, that will allow us to then talk about the next phase.
Okay.
So
Thank
it was very productive.
I have a follow-up question based on what Maria just asked. Let me share. I was talking to my oldest daughter, and my grandkids are from the Torrance School District. She was able to even access the what they put up, store on their computer, through the Zooming process, that the kids got connected to the lesson plan. Is such technology available to us?
They connected to the, what to what?
They're able to access the lesson that they recorded from a particular teacher.
Oh, yeah. Some teachers are recording either
Yeah.
parts or whole lectures, sending them
so the
anywhere.
Torrance School District allow my daughter to access through a computer code. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so
that's,
the reason why I asked that.
yeah. Within the same district?
Yes.
Yeah, we have students, I mean, Zoom kind of gives us some information, or the Google Classroom product, so that students can log in any way if they have the appropriate code. And they're able to get this information from all over the world.
Right, and then of course, my daughter Jennifer, being a lawyer, and then she has full computer knowledge, she was able to work with the kids, and then once they finish the lesson, they call it in and say, yeah, we
Submit
completed
it.
this lesson, submitted it.
Yeah,
Okay, I just want to ask that.
it's astounding what they're doing. The
Right.
innovation and the ways they're solving this distance learning puzzle. I'm not going to claim that it's ideal for kids, but what
That's right.
teachers have done is unbelievable.
You have to have some parents that have the capability
Yes.
to work with the kids. That's right.
True.
I think one other point to this is there was a big question amongst the group, both meeting 1 and meeting 2, about our technology, the Chromebooks coming back and forth with students. And at this point, the conversation was, if we have them in a reduced scheduled day, our intent is not for them to bring their technology where they've been behind a screen all this time, but rather be present in a classroom, not assigned more work on a computer. The afternoon could be access to the computer, but for the brain development and all of the things that are so important right now, social, emotional, getting in a seat and having direct contact with other people is what needs to happen.
Trinae, how close is San Bernardino, if you know, San Bernardino County to get into the purple?
From purple to red.
Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday, we had some positive, the day before, we had some positive news, but then we moved back into purple yesterday. So we're awaiting some more information about that. So plugging along, we do have a newsletter that we plan to put out tomorrow afternoon. That's why it was important to update you with Pat today, because we need the information out to families about the fact that we are going to continue the process for the waiver with a target date of getting that waiver to the county next week. They are turning them around fairly quickly, but our district would then go on the list either next Friday or Tuesday as to have been put a waiver in. And we will put a date that we would like to begin, but no sooner than that date. So that if the delay from the county on our waiver happens, we're not trying to anticipate a start date that we might not be able to pull off.
And that would be for elementary?
It would be TK through 6th grade. And we would, in fact, at the next board meeting, you will hear some information regarding preschool having to do with a public hearing, because our state preschool program has to be in conjunction with our elementary program. So that, and it needs to happen in October as far as the public hearing. So that will happen as well. So most likely a phased in approach with preschool. That doesn't open the entire preschool system, but a couple classrooms to get kids in, process the access, all the things that we're trying to get done.
So we're going to the county with this next week?
That's our goal, is that by the end of next week, we have filed our waiver. Okay, and it will be in a newsletter. The teachers and the administrators and classified staff that were on the planning group and continue to work with us, they'll be in a meeting with us on Tuesday next week. They have the tentative dates with the timeline of what we're trying to target and hit. And they asked, can we share that with people? And we said, well, you can share it, but we have no definitive set in stone until we get that approval from the waiver. Because right now we are still considered red. So it takes the 14 days of good data to be from purple to red. We're still purple, to go from purple to red.
Now, while we are planning the coming back or return to school, what conversations are you holding with your certificated and classified employees who may have compromised health conditions that may not come back? Are you having those conversations to know what you're going to do with them when it's time to return.
Yes, that obviously is a concern that comes up. That will be a task at the negotiation table with both units.
Risk
Currently,
management.
we do have an MOU in place with teachers that talks about a protocol on how we will prioritize the teachers assigned to the remote learning positions that will remain. So right now, that's our fallback, and it seems to be a fair, we agreed to it at the negotiation table, and it really did do a good job at putting people with the health needs first
Okay.
and recognizing that as a priority.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, comments. Kylie, do we have any public comments?
We do.
Good.
This comment came in from Melissa Wetzel. To all parties, we expect your full, honest, timely, transparent public participation in course correcting on the COVID-19 response immediately. We will continue to stay in touch to ensure this occurs. There was 5 attachments. I have printed those attachments, and I have a set for each of the board members before you leave that I will provide you today.
Thank you.
Okay, under superintendent comments, I just would like to bring back to your attention that at the last board meeting, we did have a request to have public comments done through a phone call-in approach. We have done that research, and if with some direction from you, I would like to pilot that for the next board meeting on October 1st. With this information stated on the board agenda. Beginning on October 1st, 2020, the district will pilot an additional method to receive public comment beyond the current method of receiving written comments, which are then read aloud. Members of the public may, in alternative, email their intent to speak up to 1 hour prior to the opening of the board meeting to avusd_board@avusd.org, along with their telephone number. At the appointed time for the public comment, the clerk will telephone the requester, who may then comment telephonically with the parameters of the board bylaws 9323 and government code section 54954.2. So if I have direction to do that, we will add that as the other option, and it would require them to email a minimum of an hour ahead of time so that we can organize the call-in ones.
Let me ask you, Trinae, what would be the difficulty? It seems that would be a little bit more complicated than actually just having somebody, if they wanted to speak, to come in and speak, and, wait outside. And because usually we do public comments, before the meeting and then at certain times. Is that out of the question? I mean, is there some type? I know that San Bernardino County does that. I know some city councils are allowing people to come in and speak in person. Like one at a time. Not milling and around in the building, but waiting outside.
Yeah, it just means more staff to be assisting in that process, whereas if we have a phone here, we can do that. That could be the next phase in, but trying to manage if you had a lot of public comments,
Right.
they'd all be potentially standing outside, asking them to separate. You have no knowledge of where they've been and what contact they have had. So it was more about your safety and, could we do it in a separate room potentially, but then it's an attachment to how do I video?
Yeah, no, that's separately complicated. I mean, we all go to the grocery store, we all go places where there's people at. I mean, as far as me personally, I don't feel that it's endangering myself to have somebody come and speak, but just an idea, just throwing it out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll leave it
I
up to.
agree with Rick. I think because we're in this enclosed situation, it's important to get other people's viewpoints and our viewpoints out. So the more communication we have, the better, is the way I look at it.
It's a goal we ought to have.
Exactly, exactly.
We'll
Make
start
it-
this phase 1.
Make it
Let's-
happen.
Let's do the phase 1 and then see
Yeah.
how it goes.
Okay, yeah, I'm good. I just,
Crawl than you want.
this is an important, this school issue is probably the number one issue with many people in the community, is kids
Agreed.
not going to school. And, you know, it falls down, it falls back on the school boards too. And obviously, we can't move forward until the state allows us to, but people have to have a voice. And, you know, I don't blame people for wanting to come and give their opinion with it, because it is such a contentious topic, and everybody is just chomping at the bit to get this over
Rick?
with.
So
If I-
might I suggest that in a phased-in approach, the first
Yeah.
is the phone call in. And then when we move to students on campus, we move our setting to the boardroom. We still cannot have large gatherings in the room. That doesn't still allow for that. School opening would be one. But we may be able to reset in the large room where there could be distancing with a maximum number of people that could be in. And we can do some research on that as well, but that could be the next phase. And those would go to a evening meeting. The minute we have kids, we would then adjust our meetings back to 5:30 at night.
No, I'm good with that.
Ms. Nelson,
Okay.
Trinae, can I follow what Rick just, and what you just said? Exactly, we move into the room, but what we want to do is if people want to come into the board, have them call our board secretary ahead of time. We can only allow, maybe we say we only restrict to so many per meeting initially.
Yeah, we'll do some research on how people are doing it the best, but some best
Sure.
practices along with I'll put Colette actually on that as the risk manager. She's probably hearing it right now for the first time that I'm going to do that, but between she and Kylie and some of our neighboring districts, we can check in on that, as well as how Loving Goods office is doing it, and see how the Board of Supervisors are getting people in to make those public comments.
Yeah, if you can bring that back to the next board meeting, or not, if you need more time, the following meeting after that, that'd be great.
Sure,
Appreciate it.
I'll update you, and we will go ahead and put this as the first phase, and so this will be on the agenda, and we'll have phone in for at least this next one.
Okay.
Okay, next week.
A lot of people don't realize the constraints that are on the board. They think we're the reason we're not opening the schools, that it comes from a higher God.
Well, I will tell you that your public comment from Melissa Wetzel is actually in support of our district moving forward. The paper that has been passed out is more about putting pressure on higher levels of government that actually are mitigating your ability to do your work. So I want you to know that. We spent some time out in front with the group last time, and they just want to know the next step. So I have some phone calls to make this evening, because I had committed to doing that regarding waiver process and where we were. And so they're really out there fighting for their kids, and we appreciate that. I have no further comments. Mr. So, any comments?
No comment.
Mr. Bender?
I'd like to point out that longtime teacher, principal at Granite Hill High School, member of the school board, Dick Sowers, was diagnosed with COVID-19.
Oh, no.
And he's slowly coming out of it. He's taking that hydroxin. But I talked to him the other day. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Good.
See, he's never had anything like getting run over by a train.
Yeah. Yeah. That's. yes. Thank
Mr.
you.
Raleigh?
No, nothing, thanks.
Ms. Okpara?
Yeah, I would like to know if it is possible for us to schedule some kind of ceremony for those students who were not able to graduate on a weekend. So we do two Saturdays so that we can meet the needs of these families that are still out there complaining that they never got a real graduation, even if we have to do a drive up, but where the students can actually come out and get a photograph with their families. I just want to see, so we don't hear this rumbling in the background that they never really got a graduation. I do realize that the superintendent did put out that she was going to do everything in her power to make this, give them a graduation. They'll be, that is worth it. I think we need to, as soon as we begin to have the conversation to return, that we begin to really think about how we're going to celebrate those students. The reason I brought up a Saturday, is probably because some of them are already in college, and that may be they may come home on a Friday and do the celebration on a Saturday and return back to college. But just so that they'll have something they can show that they did graduate in COVID era.
as soon as we get some permission to do any kind of gathering, we will absolutely put a plan together that we can bring back to the board. I will let you know that in my own thoughts, we have kids that will, from clear across the country, that if they wanted to participate, a holiday period of time where their winter semester break, where some might be coming home, we could maybe do several options so that we could get as many of them as we can get. So I will bring back a plan, not next board meeting,
No.
but hopefully by our November board meeting with some more information.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Davis?
Well, maybe if you have several plans.
Donna, can you speak to, we can't hear you.
Oh, maybe if you have several plans, option one, option two, because these kids, if they're far away at college, that's not gonna fit unless it falls on a day. So we might have to have several plans to fit several needs.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we need to be the one way. That's all.
Thank you.
Sure.
Discussion action session. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees discuss and take action on the following items. Adopt the learning continuity and attendance plan LCAP for the 2020-2021 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All those in, go ahead, Donna.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Consent agenda. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees consider approving a number of agenda items as a consent list. Consent items are routine in nature and can be enacted in one motion without further discussion. This procedure conserves meeting time for a full discussion of significant issues. Consent items to be approved in one motion, 1 through 3. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Kylie, do we have any other public comments?
We do not.
I have no comment either. Mr. So,
I don't have any.
No.
Mr. Raleigh?
No.
Ms. Okpara?
None.
Mrs. Davis?
I would like to say that this has been probably the toughest time for kids in our country. Of all, the whole time I was growing up, it was never, ever anything like this, where school got pretty much, you couldn't go there in person. So this is I hope and pray it never happens again.
There is no need for a second closed session. So if we can have a motion to adjourn, and then you can sign all of the documents.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We adjourn. Kylie, do you have-